Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of InvoTalks. And today's episode is going to be very much exciting because today's episode is all about Metaverse, all the predictions regarding Metaverse, and whether it is going to upgrade it, downgrade it. Well, as per statistics, it is going to be upgraded, but let's see, fingers crossed. So, from quite a long time, we have been receiving queries like how to build showrooms in Metaverse, what's the price of buying land in Metaverse, how to start a virtual showroom in Metaverse, and all, and then many more, many more. So, this episode is going to answer all these queries, and because we came across a very amazing startup, Emperia, which helps creating virtual showrooms. Welcome, Olga. And Olga is the founder and CEO of Emperia. Emperia is already partnering with globally renowned retail powerhouses, including Bloomingdale's, Dior. Wow. And Olga is a Bob's contributor. And the best part and the most interesting part about Emperia is it has raised $10 million in Series A. So, welcome, Olga, and how are you?
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Yeah, I'm very excited for our chat.
Thank you, Olga, for being a guest in InvoTalks. And so let's start our podcast. So, Olga, please tell us about how did you enter into this world of entrepreneurship? And because we've seen you as a 9 to 5 job person, then how did you enter into this, and how is this life of 24/7 entrepreneur?
Yeah, of course. So my background and my career started in the fashion industry. So I've spent about 6.5 years in fashion, going from retail, then wholesale, then eventually e-commerce, and worked with lots of brands, predominantly in luxury, from Coach, Michael Kors, Valentino, a whole bunch of others, and especially through wholesale, I've worked with maybe 30 different brands. And as I was in the fashion industry, one thing that I saw with every single brand I worked with was the shared hatred for e-commerce. Because every single brand was going on about how much how much impact they could make in their stores with customer service, brand experience, so much differentiation. And, you would never enter a Zara store and a Louis Vuitton store and think that they're the same. Versus online, it was always limited to this white page, list of products. And as a consumer, I'm going through 20 pages of clothing, by the end of which you're like, I never want to see another product ever again, was less than ideal as an experience. So I started seeing a bit of a gap with the way e-commerce was addressing things as a channel, and how brands were basically forced to go into it to address younger consumers and newer audiences. And I then moved into a consultancy role at Microsoft, which was a passion project as well. But it gave me a great deeper insight into what technology was available. And even though it was early 2018, I got to try VR for the first time. And I found it absolutely mind-blowing. It was this massive headset with lots of cables. But I thought, if we took this technology and made it a bit sleeker, wouldn't it be great to just sit home with your nice drink and enjoy a beautiful fashion shopping experience? And I thought consumers would love it because it's more engaging, and you can discover more and learn more about what you're buying into. And brands would love it because it finally solves their problem that e-commerce doesn't represent them adequately. It doesn't allow to differentiate and engage consumers in the level that they're doing store. So it was kind of an initial idea for Emperia, and then I started from there. And on how I found it, leaving a 9 to 5 job and going into entrepreneurship, it was very, very exciting because I thought, well, you know what, I'm really believing in this, and let me go and try and figure it out, even though I had absolutely no technical skills at that point. And I always thought, well, you know what, if anything, I can always go back to my 9 to 5. It's not going to go anywhere. So luckily, I made a move.
Seems like you are enjoying your entrepreneur life.
Very much so.
Okay, great, amazing. So, Olga, how does Metaverse impact e-commerce? And for a non-technical person, how much does it cost to open a store in e-commerce, in the Metaverse, e-commerce store in Metaverse?
Yes, of course. So I guess to begin with, I'll give a bit of an overview of what we do at Emperia, and then I can go deeper into Metaverse per se. So we are an immersive commerce platform that helps brands set up their virtual stores that integrate into their e-commerce channels to help them boost their customer engagement, conversion rates, bring more younger consumers and Gen Z on board as well. So really moving towards kind of next frontier of e-commerce. And in terms of how does this in metaverse technologies as a whole, how does it help retailers? I think this gap of retailers having to move into digital channels, but at the same time not having enough sufficient tools to really engage consumers has existed for quite a long time. And metaverse technologies became so widely adopted by retailers in the first place because they've always been waiting for it. And the other thing is, if you think about fashion industry and retail industry and technology as a whole, they've been historically slow to go into it. If we look at, say, adoption of social media back in 2009, 2010, and missed out on it slightly, and they were quite delayed to get onto the social media bandwagon. So now when Metaverse started happening, because there was such an obvious fit, all brands were like, yeah, we've got to try it, almost a kind of FOMO effect from what happened before. So that's where when it comes to brand engagement, boosting conversion rates, bringing more consumers into it, Metaverse technologies are great as long as they're implemented in a kind of very strategic way rather than kind of jumping in every different platform at the same time.
Yeah, strategy is very important when it comes to e-commerce stores, especially because you have to engage your consumer. You have to be very much engaging. You have to see your competitors as well. So yeah, it's important. Olga, how do you make a showroom in the metaverse, and how Emperia can assist in that?
Yes, of course. So when it comes to creating a virtual store or virtual showroom, pretty much any, like we can call it a virtual brand world in a sense. So the first step of this is to create a space, which would really reflect your brand. And that's where, as Emperia, we usually recommend rather than replicating your physical store, creating something to really translate your brand vision and your brand atmosphere, but doesn't necessarily replicate it. To give you an example, say Lacoste created a virtual world in our platform, and when you enter it, you had to go through the mouth of crocodile to get inside of crocodile and discover an upside down tennis court where you could walk on walls and ceilings. So really define the logic of what's feasible in the physical world. And that is first and foremost the beauty of the technology, because you can really utilize 3D in whichever way you want and unleash the creativity there, but also create these unexpected user flows, which are not quite so possible if you're just replicating your physical stores, which are really to digital flows as well. So that is the first step. And the next part, and that's where strategy is really important, and we're now really seeing brands investing into long-term virtual flagship stores rather than one-off. Because with us, we have a content management system called Artemis, which enables the brand to dynamically update everything that happens within their virtual store. So all the products, all the content, so it becomes part of their integrated e-commerce strategy, rather than one-off marketing extent. And that's where we can really track data, see what's been happening, adapt the experience towards the audiences that target to drive optimal results when it comes to both conversion rates, but also engagement times. So the average engagement time that we would see across virtual stores would be 12 minutes. If we compare it to a regular e-commerce website, that's about 6 to 7x improvement. And a similar impact on conversion rates as well. So that's where by seeing data from the long-term approach, we can really adapt and keep the channel growing.
Okay, amazing. Also, can you walk us through the process of buying land, etc., for this purpose?
Yes, of course. So I guess buying land is what originated from platforms like Metaverse, like Sandbox or Decentraland. And I guess at the beginning of next year was seen as an integral part of creating a Metaverse experience. This doesn't necessarily have to be true. And what we're seeing most successful, so say with most of our virtual stores that we help brands launch, they live within the brand's website as a standalone experience. So they're not dependent on any other platform. The brand has full control of driving traffic, but also full control over driving actual transactions through the virtual store, because we integrate directly within their existing e-commerce channel, checkout, stock management, so on, versus with the likes of the Decentraland or Sandbox. A lot of it is very much tied to NFT, crypto wallets, and that particular audience that can only access those channels. So when it comes to buying land, or we've seen a lot of brands renting land through some of our partners, like the Metaverse Group, for example, so you can rent virtual land as well, so you don't have to make such a massive investment from the beginning. And that typically is quite effective to effectively launch the experience within December run and target that audience group that they wouldn't necessarily see on their website.
Okay, so is Emperia going to work on blockchain as well and NFTs as well?
So we can integrate with NFTs and any blockchain wallet as well. Kind of going back to the cost example, for instance, that's where we integrated a token gating room. So just a Lacoste NFT before could access that special room that had prizes and special product selection and so on. And that was connected through a token gating integration. So they needed their crypto wallet to effectively access it, whether Metaverse or any other. That's where for us it's super important to remain agnostic, because for a lot of Metaverse platforms, you can only sell digital goods. And I think the world and the brands especially are not quite there yet. They still need to sell their physical goods to make sure that they affect the bottom line in a meaningful way. And then everything when it comes to NFT and digital tokens and so on, it comes as an additional layer to it.
Okay, great. So, I have two questions in my mind. Let me just ask first, and then that is how metaverse technology has revolutionized the virtual showrooms.
I think before, and that's kind of going back to most virtual showrooms, e-commerce had a similar sort of challenge where differentiation was very, very low. It was hard to consumers and make them stay there because, we've seen so many e-commerce websites by this point that it almost doesn't matter whether we buy from one or another. And that's what with metaverse technologies, it really allowed us to target Gen Z in a more meaningful way, bring the brand to life. And also we're seeing this even with brands that have never opened a physical store. So say Saks, one of our clients, Saks Underwear, they have created a virtual metaverse store and they've never had any kind of store or physical presence before. So it's a way to visualize your brand to begin with and create this customer brand connection. And beyond that, if we're looking at a kind of sheer impact on conversion rates and commercials as well, when it is integrated into their existing e-commerce channels to allow them to drive meaningful revenue, that's where by seeing the product in a very relevant context, using visual merchandising, and also visualizing in 3D, brands are able to drive up to 75% increase on conversion rates just for the products that are placed within the metaverse stores.
Yeah, it seems like people are getting benefits from metaverse, especially businesses are getting getting benefits from that. So, and just a question popped up in my mind. Olga, are you a are you belong from a technical background or you're a lay person?
I have absolutely no technical background. I come from fashion and retail, and most of my background is sales and buying. So yeah, and it's my co-founder who does all the technical magic.
But no, I mean, you seems like a technical person. I mean, you are saying things in such a flow that I was thinking, is she a fashion person or is she a technical person? It's a very
Good when you get.
it is very impressive. As I just told you before our podcast, you are too young to be than your
Okay, that happens as well.
Okay. So let's again move into the podcast. So how much commercial metaverse, especially for retail industry, can be beneficial? How metaverse is beneficial for businesses, for retail people? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges of especially 2022 was justifying the ROI coming from Metaverse, because for a lot of brands, with all the hype thanks to Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, with all the hype around it, brands started jumping into it without having a sort of sufficient use case or enough strategic involvement in this, where they would just go like, let's create a decentralized experience, let's create a Metaverse store onto it. So no one was really thinking about tracking things. But at the same time, when it's done in a more strategic, long-term way, and the brand really thinks about how does this integrate into their long-term strategy, how does this impact their consumer focus, what's the investment goes behind it, and we also use data to continuously optimize this, that's where we can drive really tangible results when it comes to conversion improvement, targeting newer audiences as well, getting that access to people that perhaps cannot access their store or they haven't been targeting before, and really making that commercially driven impact. I think one of the core parts of it, and that's where we, as a company, are able to differentiate ourselves as well, is integrating within their revenue driving channels rather than just channels, so that they can drive tangible, meaningful revenue, see that impact, and continue the investment.
Okay, great. So, what are your what you suggest to the new startups when it comes to metaverse? Do they need to invest on metaverse or and all, especially the retail people? What would you suggest?
I would say, and that's where we're seeing a lot of newer brands and younger brands that emerge. Oh, some of them are going almost against creating a traditional e-commerce website and straight into virtual stores and virtual environments because they can start building out that brand presence from day one rather than kind of pivoting and shifting late. At the same time, it's still quite a significant investment for a lot of brands to kind of get to a sufficient level of quality, how you perform the integration, and align your entire organization around it. So I would say for newer brands, it's about creating a strategy from the get-go and seeing how through virtual technologies in general.
Okay. So, Olga, where do you see Emperia in 2030?
2030. Wow, that's quite a timeline. I think for us, and when I think about the big vision for Emperia, it's about becoming the new frontier of e-commerce and thriving. If I can see every single business from a kind of smaller designer that started yesterday, all the way to giant corporations pivoting their websites towards using virtual technologies, that's what we want to be, and we want to be that platform that effectively creates this infrastructure to enable people to drive their brands and drive their revenues through virtual technologies, and effectively allow everyone to utilize data and the infrastructure behind the platform to do this. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, amazing. And hopefully you guys will reach there as well. And you can, because if a person can be an entrepreneur at the age of 26, so that person can do anything. So, okay. Just a last question from my side, last but not least, and that is, what is your secret sauce behind this level A funding, and how did you get this?
I think for me, the secret sauce to building any company is people, because companies are people and great products are built by great people. They don't just happen by default. So that's where me, I think, as a founder, invest in your team, find a great people and stick with them. So perhaps if I'm thinking about company building secret sauce, that would be it.
Okay, since you were in the fashion industry, so did it help you in funding as well?
I would say it really helps to understand the market that you're selling into and what are the needs of that market. Because I think a lot of metaverse companies come with a very technical background to begin with, versus me and my co-founder bring a good business sense and technical background because in the industry. And that's where I would say just this innate understanding of what value we need to bring to that market is something else.
So who is the audience of Imperia? What kind of people Imperia is targeting?
So we typically sell to slightly larger organizations within fashion, retail, pretty much any sector of retail today. We started with luxury. We're now seeing a lot of expansion across all the different verticals and global expansion as well. Goes from Europe to US and Middle East these days. So I would say looking at really e-commerce departments in those large organizations.
Okay. So, Olga, did you guys provide consultations as well for this?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Did you guys provide consultations as well?
Yeah, so typically within both our salesperson onboarding process, once a brand comes on board, we do support them with their strategy and how to best position, approach, market the virtual store once they release it as well. Because I think one of the common misconceptions for a lot of brands when it comes to metaverse and virtual technologies in general, they're going to release it and people are going to come, which doesn't necessarily happen. And there's still a lot of marketing promotion strategy that needs to happen behind it, and to support our customers on that as well.
Okay, great. Amazing. And Olga, it is amazing talking to you. It was really fun to get to know a person who first belong from a fashion industry, who's a 9 to 5 person, and then who jumped into this life of entrepreneurship. It was an amazing conversation with you, and thank you so much for giving us your precious time.
Thank you. It was great being here.